their child's school come to my office and say, Dr. Simpson, can I, on my planning period, go to my child's school to see what's going on with him or her in that classroom? But I want you to give that same respect to that teacher, that child that's in your classroom. Because that parent's at work too. And they may not have the latitude and the flexibility to walk off their job on their planning period to come and see about your child. So my intensity increased. And over the years at becoming this leader and this administrator, I felt like I had to invent the type of teacher that I needed. I wanted a teacher, Reverend Mack, that was just cool. I wanted a teacher that would accept me for my C effort. Kids, notice I said C effort. There's a difference between effort and acknowledgments and accomplishments. See, what we've done now, we've gotten to a place where we are celebrating things that we should expect. I went to my son's 5th grade honors program, and when I walked in the auditorium and I saw all these parents with gift bags and balloons and flowers, and I didn't have anything. I didn't understand what was going on because it was just a celebration that those children that had made the honor rolls, principals list, or had done well on the state testing, that they would be acknowledged and recognized. And so at the end of the program, I had to call my son over to me and say, hey, young man, congratulations. I have something to share with you. He said, Dad, what's that? I said, I need to explain to you the difference between an expectation and a celebration. He was 10 years old. He looked at me like, Dad, what are you talking about? I said, you made all A's this year as a 5th grader. I expect for you to make all A's as a 6th grader. As a matter of fact, I'm going to leave here and go by the principal's office and find out when is the honors program next year, because I expect for you to be here. Now, I didn't buy you any gifts. I don't have any balloons. We'll go get you a video game. But I need for you to understand, son, that I expect for you to do great things. And we're not going to celebrate things that you should be expected to do. I expect for you to get to the 9th grade. I expect for you to get to high school. I expect for you to go to college. So every time you do something, we're not celebrating. Now, when you graduate from college, then we're going to celebrate. So then you'll be off my payroll. This year I spoke at some moving on ceremonies. Children moving on from one grade to the next. Celebrating. Children moving from the 5th grade to the 6th grade. Like that's not what you're supposed to do. Celebrating children going from the 8th grade to the 9th grade. Like that's not what you're supposed to do. Parents, we cannot marginalize our expectations. We've got to raise our expectations. And then our children will meet those expectations. If the bar is high, they will reach that bar. But if it's low, that's all they'll shoot for. So how difficult you can imagine it is to convince parents that you can't be the valedictorian in the 5th grade. It's not possible. You're not earned any credits. Wearing the cap and gown in the 8th grade is not going to get you anywhere. And there's not much we need to celebrate with that. So it's important, children, that you know and understand. As the pastor talked about the pomp and circumstance, that is a beautiful song, the instrumental version. We play that at times when our children have displayed accomplishments and completion. But graduation is not the end, it's just the beginning. Yes, sir. Commencement is defined as the beginning. So So I always ask children this question. You just graduated from high school, comma. Not period. You just graduated from high school, comma. So what's next? Or I just graduated from high school, but I'm going to college. Or but I'm going into the military. It's just the beginning. And those are the types of things that we should expect. And when we don't expect those types of things, then our children will marginalize their efforts. Now, I always tell children there are only two things you need to do to be successful in the world, in college, in the business world, whatever. Any walk of life, hey, it may even work for you as an adult. Just two things. Real simple. Don't forget. One, do your work. Number two, mind your business. The doing your work part is easy. But the minding your business part gets a little difficult. See, now they are concerned about likes, how many likes they can get. I'm just happy if one person likes me. I don't need 1,000 likes. It's not minding your business. Minding your business is not worrying about what he say, they say, it say about you. Because you know we only talk about people who doing something. So if you don't want anybody to talk about you, don't do nothing. It's not what you call, but what you answer to. My first name is Ralph. If you call me anything else, I'm not going to turn around and say, huh? Are you talking to me? That's not minding your business. Those two things, just those two things, as a child, as an adult, trust me, it works for you. It can work for you. So, Reverend Mac, the last time that I was here, I think I might have ended on something about bragging rights, which was the last chapter of my first book, From Remedial to Remarkable. And on bragging rights, I talk about how important it was for me to make sure that I equipped my mom with something to talk about if people started talking about what they baby did and how they baby did this. And she's not the type to brag, but I want to make sure that if anybody goes there, she got something to come with. So in 2010, as I continued to serve as a regional superintendent in the most challenging schools in the southern region of DeKalb County, I had an unfortunate experience. Y'all know about it. I'm on the front page of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. I was the top story at 6. I could not imagine how that made my mom feel because that was nothing to brag about. I know how it feels now because as a parent, you don't want to see your child or children hurt. That's right. That's right. And I know she saw her baby hurting. And that hurt me. So I went from regional superintendent to assistant principal at a high school. I mean, every single thing that I touched turned sour. I was a part-time professor at Argosy University, and they let me go. All my speaking engagements went to 0. Nobody wanted to be associated with me. People that I was working closely with stopped calling and stopped speaking. You know, when you go through something, folk run from you. They don't run to you. If you ever want to find out who's down with you, go through something. I took this assistant principal demotion with my dignity and grace intact. I had 2 children to take care of. My son was 9 and my daughter was 4. And my son said to me one day when I picked him up from in the car, he said, "Dad, one of my classmates said that they saw you on the news." I said, "I ain't no 9-year-old watching the news." That was a 9-year-old's mama in the kitchen, on the phone, talking about my son's principal on the news right there. You see him, and her son saw that and came back to school and said, hey, y'all see Chandler's daddy on the news? So my son had to deal with that. So I explained to him, hey, your daddy did nothing wrong. He was 9 years old. He didn't understand. But I had instilled in him our mantra every single morning when he got out of the car. Work hard and watch good things happen. Every morning, that was our ending. You get out of the car, work hard and watch good things happen. That started when he was about 8 or 9 years old. So for 3 years as an assistant principal at Tucker, and when the newspaper in that area came out that Dr. Simpson, I saw for Tucker, that was my welcome. For the 22 years I had served in this school district, with not one unsatisfactory evaluation, I was welcomed with an article that I was an eyesore. One of the teachers made copies of the article and passed it out to their students and had a classroom discussion. I was looked upon as a villain and a crook, as they coined me the book guy. And I used to wonder why it was taking so long for me to build these relationships with children, because usually I have that magnetic attraction, and I couldn't understand it. And I said, okay, they made me out to be a criminal. And so I said, okay, I took a pause and stepped back, and I just said, well, let me just allow for them to come to me. And I was just being my authentic self. And over time, I just started to wait on them. And after that third year of serving as an assistant principal, I got the call, and I was appointed the principal at Towers High School. I was the 8th principal in 8 years. The 8th principal in 8 years. Miss Burdette had gone to the school board and said, will y'all please send us a real principal? It was the school and the position that principals came to professionally die. They left that school either retired, demotion, or terminated. But won't God give you the most challenging platform? Won't he give you the right building blocks to be able to stand on? See, everybody that was throwing stones, all I did was stood on top of those stones. And the more stones they threw, I stood on top of them, and I continued to step up. So for that year that I was at Towers, with the support of people like Miss Burdette, and all of those organizations, the nonprofits that we work with, we turned that school around. And we became the talk. And you know, it's amazing that when you go through something, you need someone. Listen, you need someone that's bold and courageous and in a position to be able to impact your life. Michael Thurman was the interim superintendent at the time. I met Michael Thurman years ago when we started a program at Stone Mountain High School, Jobs for Georgia Graduates. And we had a relationship. And he sent me to Towers and said, hey, you take care of Towers and you write your own ticket. After being at Towers for 14 months, I was recognized as the system-wide principal of the year. See, when I sat down at that table with the interim superintendent at that time, when I was demoted, I asked every last one of those individuals at the table, how many years do you have before you retire? And they asked me, why did I ask that question? I said, because I want to make sure y'all here when I come back. So after that recognition of Principal of the Year, Michael Thurman called me about 4 weeks later and said, I'm appointing you back to regional superintendent. Same office, same role, same phone number. So for those that were celebrating my setback, they were confused about my comeback. Listen, I won't stand here and tell you that it was not a traumatic situation. I didn't know it was trauma at the time. So my mama used to call every day, every night and say, you all right? And I kept giving her, yeah, I'm good. Because I didn't want to give her the fact that they had referred my case to the Professional Standards Commission and they suspended my certificate for a year. I didn't want to tell her that. I didn't want to tell her that I had to go to the district attorney's office. So when I got back to that office, I was a different person. I was the person then that was looking for reasons to get people to understand that you have to believe in second chances, folks. You've got to have some grace and mercy. And so when I went about the work in those schools, we had the largest and the highest suspension rate, but the lowest academic achievement rate. We were first and last and last and first. And I said, we've got to do something different. So I became certified in restorative practices and restorative justice. And I emphasized the fact that we have got to give children a second chance because you got one. I informed them about how important it was to recognize the difference between a behavior issue and a mental health issue. See, let me give you an example, real simple. Mental health is when you get knocked down and you get back up. Mental illness is when you get knocked down and you stay down. We had children that were mentally sick. But if you don't understand what a mental health crisis looks like, you assume that it's a behavior issue. It's the exact same things that was taking place in the jails and the prisons. Exactly the same thing. Child misbehaves in class, they call an assistant principal for discipline. The assistant principal for discipline suspends the child out of school. So I emphasize, let's have a conversation before consequences. What do you mean, Dr. Simpson? Hey, the child came to your classroom late that morning. He sat down and you start going in about the child and why he's late. And he curses you out. You call for the assistant principal. And the assistant principal comes to get that child and takes that child to the office and calls the parent. And you tell the parent, your son is going to be suspended for 3 days for use of profanity. And the mother says, that's my fault. What do you mean, man? What do you mean it's your fault? Well, we had a long night last night. My boyfriend and I got into it. We had to leave the house at 1 o'clock in the morning, find somewhere to stay. By the time we got to a place where we could lay our heads, it was 4 o'clock in the morning. I had to get him to school. I know he's late, but I didn't have time to get him breakfast. So here's a child who experienced a traumatic event the night before. That he walked into this classroom, and the teacher didn't take the time to have a conversation. See, I asked that teachers ask one question every single morning. Who's ready to learn and who's not ready to learn? And if you're not ready to learn, raise your hand. And if a child raises their hand, then you step outside of the classroom with that child and have a conversation. So after mama finished talking, the assistant principal changed his tune. I can't suspend your child for that because that was an adverse childhood experience that took place the night before. So this assistant principal who is not trauma informed lacks the appropriate services and understanding and knowledge to be able to appropriately address and assess this child's issues so that he can or she can be provided with the resources. And we wonder why our suspension rates are high in our schools. Because we have sick people trying to help sick people. So because I had built this reputation of being tough on children and managing discipline and behavior, these principals looked at me like, so what are you saying, we can't suspend children? I said, that's not what I'm saying, because yeah, there are some children that need to be removed from school. But I ask that you do this. If you remove a child from school for fighting, I want you, after the 5 or 10 days that those children are fighting, to make contact with those parents. And before they come back to the school, there's a counselor referral. There's a social worker referral. And upon their entrance, both parents of both children, along with the children, sit at the table and have a conversation. Because y'all gonna be in the cafeteria together at some point again. And I need to know whether you all can function appropriately in the same space so that we don't have to revisit this conflict again. If you do all of that, yeah, you can suspend them. So I began to believe that in order to be effective, you have to reach before you teach. See, y'all know me. I didn't do well in school. I mean, I graduated from high school with about a 2 point something. It was on the low end of the twos. I did work and better work in the teacher's class that I liked. If I didn't like you, I did all right in your class. But if I liked you, I did your work. So when teachers came to me and they were complaining about the students not coming to the after-school tutorial, I said, well, it's probably because they don't like you. They said, what do you mean? I said, well, if they don't like you and like being in your class during the day, when they have to be there, what makes you think they're going to come in the afternoon when they don't have to be there? So when I say reach before you teach, that means liking you. The children have to like you. So instead of the focus on a lesson plan, focus on a relationship plan. Build a relationship plan and have a notebook of a relationship plan of every child in your classroom. That's good. Then you start to teach. Because if you don't reach them, it's nothing about math that they're going to learn. If you don't make that connection and build a relationship that based on genuine love, care, and concern, you're not going to teach them anything. The teaching and learning concept evokes love. You can't eliminate it from it. You can't be eliminated from it. So when I sat down and I interviewed teachers, I didn't really care about whether they could teach math, science, English, or social studies. My first question is, do you love children? See, I can teach you how to teach. I can't teach you how to love. You got to bring love on your own. So those are the things that teachers need to be equipped with in their tool belt. And if you equip teachers with those things, then they're able to reach. Therefore, they're able to teach. So we live in this era, you all know, of test scores and academic achievement. And I keep saying to people that if you want better scores, you got to make people better. Y'all will catch that one after I leave. If you want better test scores, then you make people better. How do you make people better? You provide them with the resources. See, that's a marathon, not a sprint. A superintendent only has a 3-year contract. There's no way that you're going to drastically improve academic achievement in 3 years. The marathon is providing wraparound services to meet the needs of all the children. Then 10 years later, they're better. And then when they see me on the street, they'll say, man, I appreciate what you did for me because you gave me an opportunity to be successful. Building on the fact that children need to be able to understand authentic literacy, being able to read, write, and speak. If you can read, write, and speak, you can change your trajectory overnight. And I'm not talking about coming in the room and say, you know what I'm saying, and that's what I'm talking about, you know what I'm saying. All these filler words. You use filler words because you don't know what to say. I'm talking about being able to articulate the King's English. No, here it is. It's the difference between talking right and talking white. If you can talk right, it's really talking green. Because if you are articulate enough and you can spit those words, somebody will pay you to speak. So this is what encompasses the simple factor. Simple factor. It's all about a belief. It's all about a belief that any and every single child can be successful, as well as an adult. It's a belief that parents need to be involved and engaged, not only in elementary school, not only at the football and baseball and basketball games, that you need to be involved holistically in order for your children to be successful, that you see them through, that the more and the older that they get, the more involved you become, because that's your investment. It's getting teachers to understand that you have to extend an olive branch in order for that child to connect. It's an understanding that getting leaders to understand that you have to build trusted leadership in a school community, so much to the point that a principal, a parent that will believe that if a problem is existing with my child, I'm going to call the principal and not Channel 2. That's trusted leadership. So that's what the simple factor is all about. So yes, I started out from remedial to remarkable, and that caused for me to go from demotion to promotion. My goal and my intent was just to save lives, folks. My goal was to make sure that children that didn't like school like me could turn it around. And I stood as an example of what that looked like. Now I stand as an example of what happens when you get knocked down. Because if I was to come off this pulpit and snatch my brother off his seat, that's on me. But if I come back next week and he's still on the floor, that's on him. The point I'm trying to make is that at some point, when you get knocked down, getting back up is on your own. You're gonna get knocked down. People are gonna pull you down. People are gonna talk down about you. They're gonna talk bad about you. But when they continue to talk, you keep standing. You keep going. So I'm going to leave you all with this. It's a story about an elephant and a dog. An elephant and a dog became pregnant at the same time. About 6-7 weeks later, that dog pushed out about 12 puppies. The elephant's still pregnant. Another 12 weeks, dog pregnant again, pushed out another 12. The elephant's still pregnant. A year had gone by. That dog's litter had pushed out about 20, 21, 22 puppies. The elephant's still pregnant. A year and a half, almost 2 years went by, and that dog ran across the elephant. The dog said to the elephant, "You still pregnant?" We became pregnant at the same time. Why are you still pregnant? The elephant said, "You're right. But let me explain to you something about being an elephant. An elephant only bears a child once every 18 months. But trust and know, when my child is born, as soon as it hits the ground, the earth shakes. As soon as mines walk across the street, cars stop in amazement because of its size. So what I want you to know and understand, dog, is that while you put out multiple puppies, when my baby elephant hits, when they hit the ground, everybody gonna know it's here. My message to you this morning is that don't be despaired, and you might accomplish and may not have met all of your achievements when someone else has. Just know that your time is coming. And then when your feet hit the ground, you stand there with your chest out. You stand there strong and proud and know that I'm here. Despite what I've gone through, I'm here. And don't let nobody tell you how long it took, but I'm here. Thank you very much.
Yeah, buddy. That's what I'm talking about now. That's a real brother there. And the only reason why they came after him, because he was a real black man who had tough love that he learned from his mama. Them Shannon sisters, y'all. I remember Mother Shannon. There's some I think Mary here tell you. Mother Roxy Simpson, thank you so much. Dr. Ralph Simpson is sent from God, just like Danny Black. And I said somebody the other day about Dr. Black. I said he's one of the most spiritual brothers I've ever met. A lot of younger people, they don't like organized religion. I didn't like organized religion growing up because church hurt is real. But I love the Lord. When I met Ralph Simpson, I said, that brother's spiritual. He's well-grounded. When I met Dr. Black, I said, that brother is spiritual. He's well-grounded. I had never seen a teacher who the students love, the parents love, his colleagues love, and the administrations hated. The reason why we got a new website right now, Pat Navarro sent me a message as we were putting up the new church website that they got from somebody because a group of faith leaders stood with Fonnie Willis in a press conference. And he called me, I got it on my phone, a false preacher. I said, thank you. Thank you very much. He said, you're going to hell. Corey said it to me, copy of it. I said, I'll meet you there. When I met Ralph Simpson, I said, that brother tight. I'm with him. He said something very profound. Get ready to play this song. That song I told you. You find out who your real friends are when you get knocked down. All these folk all around you, you giving them ride and buying them hamburgers and scrimps and stuff. Shinning and grinning. You're going to get knocked down. Get attacked by the powers that be. You'll see who your real friends are. Just like we did with Fonnie Willis, we did it with Ralph Simpson. They wanted to get rid of him completely. We said, no, I can't tell you what we said. Still got some young people. We said, heaven no. That's what we said in my mind. Heaven no. And we were able to work out. Mike Thurman is our friend. He's coming out as CEO. Got elections going on in DeKalb County. Y'all better vote. Y'all better. Got CEO and 3 commissioners. Early voting starts tomorrow, June 18th. You got the right people in the right position, you can get stuff done. I take great pastoral pride in saying that Dr. Ralph Simpson is a part of First Iconium Baptist Church. This book, you got some downstairs, right? I think some in the hall, they'll be available. Go ahead and start playing my song. When I think of him, I think of this song. We're going to open the doors of the church, deacons. Come on. There may be somebody here, some young person who haven't heard the spiritual man of God, well-grounded. I want everybody to stand. We're opening the doors of the church.
All these years,
there may be somebody here who haven't heard this brother, Dr. Ralph Simpson.
Through the valleys,
it's God's grace that got us this far.
I know it had to
be God. How did he go through what he had to go through? How did he see what he saw? God's grace.
How did I make it through?
He's not ashamed of his journey. That journey is his testimony. And I cannot tell you the number of lives that have been changed
It's so easy
because of
to
Dr. Ralph
explain.
Simpson. I've been there with him.
God's grace.
It was God's grace.
God's grace.
Doors of the church are open right now.
God's grace.
Doors of the church are open. There may be somebody. I made it this far by the grace. By the grace. Parents, he was speaking to us too. God's grace.
It was God's grace.
God's grace.
His amazing grace
The doors of the church are open.
made it this far.
You want to move from demotion to promotion.
By the grace
I dare you to trust God. I dare you to accept Jesus Christ as your personal Lord and Savior.
for how you brought me,
How you brought me, Lord,
how you brought me through the night.
through the night. The door of the church is open right now. We heard from heaven today. We heard from heaven.
You never
He ain't got no ordination, no theological degree, but he's a spiritual brother.
side.
Well grounded.
There were so many times when I came so
The door is open.
close. Oh man, death, he tried to take me in.
Look at that. That's
So the
beautiful.
reason
That's
I'm
beautiful.
here,
That's beautiful right there.
hard for me to see. In fact, it's so easy.
Just give it a few more. Just give it a few
It
more.
was
God's grace. God's grace.
It was God's grace.
God's grace. That's how we made it this far. I made it this far
Yes, I did.
by the grace.
Grace,
By the grace of God.
I remember the times when I
When I strayed away,
even though I knew the word, still I
The door
would
is open.
obey. But God's mercy and His grace stay with me,
stayed with me,
brought me
brought me all the way.
all the way. God's grace,
God's grace.
God's grace,
God's grace.
God's grace,
God's grace.
amazing grace.
God's grace.
I made it this far.
Made it this far
I made it
by the grace.
by the grace of God. Anybody wanna know
Just how I got.
Anybody wanna know how I'm still standing? I made it.
Made it this far.
Yes, I made it by the grace
As you remain standing,
of God.
I want to thank all of you for being here today.
Said,
Weren't we visited by the Holy Spirit today? Let's give the Holy Spirit a hand. Let's give Jesus a hand. Let's give God a hand. Dr. Danny Black, Dr. Ralph Simpson, the ethereal sounds of praise. All of our young people who participated today. God bless you. Don't forget Saturday, we're going to have some more fun. Old school, new school. Malcolm with Malcolm. He already in the gym. I already told Sam we recruited for the old school last year. We're going to have to recruit a little harder. It's going to be a lot of fun. Saturday starting at 11, old school cheerleaders. Sister Max, she be serious about that cheerleading stuff down here. It's going to be a lot of fun as well. The last thing I want to say, Dr. Simpson, I talked with the new superintendent of DeKalb County Schools. At first, I was not for him. I felt it was more than he could handle. But he done already convinced me. Let me tell you why. When many of us here over 40, I'll say 40, so they include some of y'all. When I went to school, I'm the last thing I'm going to say, the home, the church, and the school work together. The home, the church, and the school. When we first moved here, we had adopted an elementary school, a middle school, high school. Somebody got so smart they kicked the church out. And then we wonder why. Ain't no discipline. Children killing children. I said to the new principal, the new superintendent, next week I'll be 70, June 17th. I said, God gave me another mission. God told me, I want you to figure out, and don't take no for an answer, how we can bring back together. I know there's some legal issues and all that. I don't give a about that, all that. I'm from Brooklyn Homes. We're here for the marathon. How are we going to bring back the home, the church, or the faith community? It ain't got to be just the church. And the schools. And that we create a partnership for our children. Our children need us. And they need us yesterday. So that we can teach them how to move from trauma to triumph. And from demotion to promotion. So when they come after your pastor, y'all cover me. Because we're going after them. We're going after them. And some of them going to have to leave. Some of them going to have to go. And new ones are going to have to come. But I have pledged myself. I said, well, what you going to do? You know, you're getting older, and one of these days, whatever. I am committed myself. I've always loved education. I've always believed in education. Everything he said was so true. You go back and listen to that. How do we bring back the home, the faith community, and our schools? Church motto, I can do all things through Christ. Turn to your neighbor, say to your neighbor, you can do all things through Christ who strengthens. Reach toward heaven, let's say together, we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. We'll be re-airing this whole service at 4 o'clock today. It'll be available after then. We had some technical difficulties when we first started, so we're going to re-air the whole thing at 4 o'clock today. We have snacks downstairs for our children and